Hello, my name is Adrian. I'm an active member of the Shooters, Fishers and Farmers Party in Tasmania. The following is an interview that I did with Michael from Springfield Deer Farm in Moles Creek, talking about the proposed commercialisation of wild deer in Tasmania. And this is his perspective as a deer farmer in Tasmania who provides his products through high quality restaurants and farmers market. Now, apologies in advance, some of the audio is difficult to hear. And unfortunately, that's one of the issues that Tasmania have, particularly those that live in rural settings, that the internet speed, etc., can be questionable. So that's a subject that we might talk about another time. But for now, we're going to be talking to Michael from Springfield Deer Farm and what he does and his thoughts as a farmer on the commercialisation of wild deer. Hope you enjoy. About your deer farm.
Sure. Look, we bought a deer farm 8 years ago in Mole Creek, Tasmania, of course. And the farm has been here for 24 years before that, so it's not a new venture. It's been operating for close to 30 years now. We run 50 hectares of fallow deer, obviously, and we have about 60 hectares of land. We believe in free range farming. One of the biggest issue when you say a deer farm, everybody thinks that you're running around and feeding them with a bucket of oats. Our deer are basically, they do what they want. We let them do what they want, and we are the ones behind the fence. So that's really our, if you like, that's the way we want to operate. We cut our own hay for winter. So we try to be as responsible, I suppose, to the nature and to the free range philosophy, which goes very well today with, the farm to plate or paddock to plate and so on and so on. So we are very happy for anybody to come and visit us and have a look at what we do and how we do it. And I think it's sometimes quite important because I generally just have a good chuckle when I hear people comparing wild deer to farm deer and how the meat tastes different and so on. Most chefs today can't bone a leg, never mind, anything else. But anyway, that'll be another question. So our philosophy is we keep our limit to up to 600 heads because the farm could probably do with more, but we don't believe that would be a way to go.
Right. And so from your perspective as well, from your deer farm with the fallow deer, because we only have fallow deer in Tasmania.
Correct.
You're able to provide consistent quality as opposed to, the whole reason why we're having this conversation is there's a current feasibility study looking at the commercialisation of wild deer. And obviously that type of approach would undermine businesses like yourself because you have to manage a lot of restrictions in terms of legislation that you must go through. So correct. In terms of the quality, I'm assuming you have consistent quality as opposed to what wild deer could ever provide.
Well, absolutely. That again is the key to success, is that when we will not provide anything if we were not happy with it. We can choose the age of the animal, the quality of the animal, and only then we would provide it or even process it. So you can't compare it to somebody going at night into the bush and in the spotlight, seeing a head and shooting it and do whatever they want to do. It's a different person, and that's the advantage of, whilst I just said we have a free range, it's still under control. So most importantly, we can control the age of the animal. We control how much they eat, and we can supplement if need be. So and of course, we have our own fully licensed abattoir, our own premises. So everything that happens on the farm stays on the farm.
So that's a big difference, isn't it? So when we talk about people are talking about commercialisation of wild deer, what they don't seem to understand is you have to, as a deer farmer, you've got the primary Safety Act to deal with and the Food Act. Can you
Correct.
explain to people that don't understand just what that means when you're processing a deer on your farm? Is it similar to the fact that, you know, how you have to process sheep? Perhaps you can just explain what that means.
Well, exactly. I mean, we get inspected by the parks inspectors for fencing. We get inspected by biosecurity. We get inspected by, well, that's a slightly different one. But yeah, we do get inspected by all the relevant authorities, the people that sort of do know what they're doing. And I have to say, they're very positive, very supportive. But you just got to tick the boxes. I mean, you just, and that's where I'm in full support of them, because the end result is that you're providing a proper controlled meat to people who are afraid that somebody will get sick of whatever. So yeah, whilst it's arduous sometimes, and you know, you got to do the right thing, I have no problem with that whatsoever.
Yeah. So with your deer farm that you operate as well. So I mean, you've won. So are most of your customers retail through farmers markets and stuff, or is it a blend between that and the restaurant trade in Tasmania and also on the mainland?
It's at the moment is half and half. It's Tasmanian restaurants and some of the very top ones, and I'm not going to boast. Yeah, we provide Deloran Market and Mole Creek Market, you know, as you do markets. So, but we also value add to our venison, and we have some fantastic butchers providing salamis and sausages and so on and so on. So that's really where our business model is. And of course, the biggest issue is that we are getting is basically illegal backdoor butchery, import of unknown quality, and you don't even know it says venison. So what is venison? Not necessarily a fallow deer, it could be anything. So it says venison gets imported from the mainland, and I've even seen packages saying packaged, not processed in Tasmania, but packaged in Tasmania. So, you know, there are people claiming to import thousands of tons, not even hundreds, thousands of tons of deer into Tasmania. And you just got to sit there. We have 170 deer farmers, registered deer farmers in Tasmania that are actually battling selling their product. So whilst I don't really believe in a big government control, there has to be something. We're talking about the potato farmers today. Why are we importing potatoes when they can't sell it? You know, we are not as big as people think, and we really have to look after our own. And what we also have to do is to ensure that they have recognized for, but as quickly as you can go up, quickly you can go down. And we just had some biosecurity problems with fruit and whatever, and we really don't want to get that into our meat product, because people then don't differentiate the meat from the farm or the meat from the bush, or whether it was a lamb or a pig or a cow. You know, it'll be meat from Tasmania. So how far we want to go with this.
Yeah, you're spot on, isn't it? Because that's the biggest problem, is that we should be buying local, supporting local, and there's always a risk when you import. I mean, you take Australian salmon as a classic example. If we allow that to be imported, the biosecurity risk alone should be concerned. And when people are buying venison from Tasmania, they know it's good quality fallow deer. It's not necessarily guaranteed to be fallow deer if people are saying they're importing it. So they're not getting a like-for-like product.
Well, some people actually don't know the difference between, it could be a red deer. It could be anything. It says venison. So if we want to talk about product control and so on, I would like to see things being correctly and saying this is a fallow deer, this is a red deer from Victoria or South Australia or New Zealand or whatever. And this is a Tasmanian, 100% Tasmanian product. And why we don't have it, I don't know. And also what I don't understand, with all these supposedly thousands of tons being imported, where is it actually going? I've been doing this now for 8 years. We have won a couple of national prizes for our venison. We went to Canberra for the Taste of Tassie, representing Tasmania, and so on and so on. So I think we've been fairly well recognized as a good quality product. And yet we get thrown into the same bag with basically, I call it roadkill with all due respect to everybody.
Yeah, no, fair.
But it's really
fair call.
Yeah, big of something that's unknown. So how do you compare? How do you import? How do you justify the capital that we have to do? $1 million.
Yeah. So
you know what I mean? So we had to spend that to buy the farm and everything else, which is fine. But then you don't want to be treated as a second-class citizen. In fact, you should be pushed forward.
Yeah.
And look, I'm very much for hunting and everything, so people don't get this wrong. Yeah. I'm 100% behind the hunters, and I've always hunted my whole life, so I've got no problem with that. But hunting for your family or for profit and eating afterwards, those are two different things. The day people will allow farmers to shoot a sheep on a property and sell it, beside the road, or get a fish out of the river and sell it. No, you can't just compare that. It's just so far-fetched. It's not even funny.
Which makes sense, yeah, because you won a produce award of 2018.
Well, we won twice, actually. We won Australia-wide, and we won Tasmania, the Delicious Food Awards, yeah.
That's awesome, because you do.
And last time I didn't even bother to go into it, to be honest. But yeah, it was a great recognition, and that's where we wanted to be. We still live in Tasmania. We don't have thousands of tons of stuff to export, but what we export should be, or what we sell to tourists and everybody else, should be of a top quality, and we can do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because you also do like a venison ham, like a dry cured smoked.
Correct. Yeah, that was quite a success. Yeah, we did it for somebody asked for a wedding, and yeah, we as I said, we do salamis and jerky and everything else, and that's where it's at. Look, value adding is always a good thing, because that's where really the money is. But you've got to have the premises, and you've got to again be comfortable that what you're putting, everybody thinks when you sell a hamburger that this is the lowest meat you can put in, and we're saying no, it's actually, we use the same hind leg for it as we do for anything else. So we stand behind our product.
Yeah, and there's a game management council that was set up recently after the 2017 legislative inquiry about talking about the wild deer, and obviously even farm deer got caught up in that. Has anybody from the Game Management Council contacted you at all, and the other deer farmers, talking about this feasibility study and etc.? Have there been much communication between that organisation and even state government?
Yes, they have, and again, I got to know them reasonably well, and again, it's a sensible approach, but they are working hard.
So
when you try to please too many people that have different interests.
Yeah.
But I think in Tassie, if we look, I'm just reading it again today. It's when you think that the biggest issues is in the wild parks and so on, or so they say, and when you think that Tasmania, 50%, almost 50% of Tasmania is wild parks, well, then let them manage it. It's two different things. Yeah. So you can't take half of Tasmania and I shouldn't quite know how they're imagining it. So yes, it's a mismanaged species that has taken a little bit to anything else, and it's got to be managed correctly. But as I said, if you can't shut the parks to hunters and then say we have a problem with the wild deer. You can't have it both ways. You either open it up and sort out the wild population if it's destroying parks.
Right. Yeah,
or you sort it out yourself.
Yeah, you're right, because it seems a bit strange that if you're trying to, recently they've just opened up the deer season for recreational hunters longer, and they've also just conducting a deer count. So to then throw on, they want to do a feasibility study. You go, well, hang on, how do you evaluate those various changes if you're going to lump them all in together? You don't have any baseline to work from. So it seems a bit of an oxymoron that they start talking about we've got millions of deer in the state. They haven't even done a survey. And look, between you and I, we pretty much know there isn't that many because we don't see that volume of roadkill.
Quite frankly, we don't want to see any deer roadkill if we can help it. Secondly, with Amelia, when I challenged them and actually told them how they just did a basically population growth accounting. All of a sudden, it became 25,000.
Yeah.
So yes, it's a nonsense. I get a lot of deer farmers around here, the guys that would love to go hunting, that are desperate to find a deer, never mind anything else. If I see a deer, which doesn't happen very often on my neighbor's farm, I just phone him.
Yeah, and you're right. Well, I mean, I've been, when they had tags before, I'd never, over the last few years, I don't think I've ever filled out my tags. So, if the deer were in the numbers that they claimed there were, and I hunt on public land, I'll be filling my tags every year. So it's a bit of an oxymoron when people claim that there's massive numbers. Now I go out and do a lot of, walking and hiking and stuff as well. And what I've noticed is, generally speaking, when there's a change in the environment, either there's the floods or there's the fires, or farmers are now bringing pivots into areas which have traditionally never had value-added crops, that's sucking deer out of non-traditional areas. But it doesn't mean the numbers are increasing. They've just moved from the non-traditional areas because there's easy feed.
And they become more visible because there has been certain amount of deforestation. We just gone through. Look, since I came here, we've gone through what is the worst. It's the worst fires. As in the pub say, Michael, since you came here, we've gone all this nonsense. But look, yes, the deer were probably always there, but they will breed unless somebody's got to keep it under control. Look, I can give you 100 wallabies every third night on the farm.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing, because that's something that I've noticed, is that the deer are easy to see, but what some people are forgetting is that for every deer they see, there's another 50, 60 wallaby that's eating them out of house and home. So, but it's easy to focus on a majestic animal like a wild deer than actually realizing it's the wallaby that it's there right behind the deer, that's cleaning up your crops.
Adrian, 80% of my fencing work, which gets quite expensive when you run a deer farm, is repairing fence against wallabies, not against the deer. People believe that, people think that we're breeding unicorns and they're flying over the fence. It's nonsense. You mentioned just now, look, we just gone through the rutting season, right? Yeah. So I've got, let's say, 300 females here. I didn't get one wild deer trying to get in.
Yeah.
Okay, so if there were deer around the farm, and I'm actually next to parks. I'm next to Parksland as well. So if there were deer around, you would see them trying to get in and so on, which we did about 6 years ago. We had a couple big fellas trying to get in under the fence, not over the fence.
Yeah. So with this commercialization of the wild deer, now I think on Friday it's the tenders closed for submissions, and they're talking about putting the report's got to be back in mid-July. What would you like to see as a deer farmer, the results from that? Because obviously you have a market at the moment, niche market, and it's difficult. The restaurant trades because of COVID virus have obviously reduced their intake of product. So obviously you guys will be struggling a little bit like everybody else, because it's difficult to go to farmers markets and get the supply. So what would you like to say to those that think that commercialization of wild fallow deer in Tasmania is a good thing?
Well, to those people, I would say, obviously you don't own a deer farm and you didn't spend any money on it. And if you think that will solve the issue, that's a small portion of the issue, because you still have to find a market. And to date, nobody showed me where that meat was going. We keep hearing about imports. I've challenged that number of times, and nobody ever showed any paperwork how much is actually coming in. So we're talking about, all these figures, but I really don't know where these figures come from. So we really need to look at how much we're importing, if we are importing, and why are we importing? Why is not the importer talking to the 170 dairy farmers and buying stuff from them? Why does he have to import from the mainland?
Yeah, exactly.
When you have an industry here, you have couple farmers with over 2,000 deer on their property. So why is the importer buying something else somewhere? Those are the things that needs to be explained. And if there is an issue within those points or the thing there, well, let's look at them and let's sort it out. So I would say I would go as far as pet food is concerned. I reckon we should. I believe we should be supporting our zoos and all the wild parks and everything with free. I'm sure that will be more than happy with free venison, free all the animals that are suffering at the moment because there is no people going in there. So yeah, I think again it just takes a bit of imagination and a bit of management, or just to say open it, and then people actually in the paperwork to give. If you give me the license, I'll give 1,000 tons of deer to somebody, to the poor. Who's going to control it? Just because people are poor, that doesn't mean you can sell them crap or give them rubbish.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because people are hungry, they still deserve to eat a properly processed meat like everybody else. So let's not go that way. That to say, oh yeah, people are hungry, let's go and just give it to them. They'll be happy. Yeah. I don't sort of support that sort of stuff.
No, fair enough. I just lost you a little while, so I'll just recap.
Oh, sorry.
That's right. I'll just recap, and then to make sure I understood correctly. So there's a lot of claims that there's 15,000 or whatever. Or I'm not sure how many they claim of deer that they reckon that dumped. But the reality of it is there's no evidence for that. And what I understand you were saying is that given that there's if there is these deer that they can't utilize, why they're not giving it to wildlife sanctuaries and zoos, etc., feeding the Tassie Devils and the tigers and the lions, etc.
Correct.
From that perspective. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, they're giving them financial grants, so it's just easy to give them taxpayers' money, right? There you go and buy yourself some meat. But why not then, if we have a problem with a certain type of any animal, well, why not process them and give it to them for free or very much discounted price or something like that? With the pet food, why don't we have a pet food industry? The problem with that is that a lot of farmers, whilst they farmer, I'm sort of classified myself as one. It's nice to have a few deer in the backyard, but when it gets too many, then everybody says, "Oh my God, what am I going to do with it?" And obviously, some people is a lot of money being made, and you say, "Guys, where? Show me the market." That's all you're left. So yeah, I don't see it. I really, truly don't see it. And what you will get is once the population and they will shy away back to the forest and everything else. If you call, so many, then you start the poaching, and then you start, the illegal stuff. Because people actually make money, and so on and so on. So I really do not think it's a very good sort of way to go. People talk about Victoria, but look at the size of Victoria and look at the size of Tasmania. So be careful how we handle this.
Yeah.
And I still go back to the hygiene. I still go back to the bacteria control. I still go back to washing hands and so on, that people seem to just discover because we have coronavirus. How do you do that in the bush?
Yeah, you're spot on, because farming deer is like farming a sheep. There's certain standards to do. You can't go out and just shoot a sheep in the paddock. and expect that as a just as a contract shooter to shoot that sheep, and expect to be able to sell that through a butcher's or a supermarket or restaurant because of the risks that are associated with it and the regulations. And deer is exactly the same thing. Whether or not people believe there's a difference because it's a wild deer becomes irrelevant. It's a product, which is a meat product, and the certain standards that deer farmers have to follow. We're very quite stringent because of the Food Act, etc. And it costs, I'm assuming it costs a fair bit of money to have the setup to start with, and also to maintain the accreditation on an annual basis.
Absolutely, and we pay per kilo, and so on and so on. So we pay for every kilo. We pay a certain amount of money to the government. So look, I don't mind all that. That's fine, but all of a sudden, when somebody from the side comes and says, "Oh well," it's all right. And what you said about it is actually, deer is actually worse than a sheep. I could actually understand when you have a sheep that you know where it's been all its life and whatever, and then you shoot it because you actually deal with known quantity. When you shoot a deer somewhere in the bush, you don't know what fields they have been eating, whether they've been eating some spray, whatever, and then you process it as good quality meat. It's the sheep is actually easier than the deer. So when people say, "Oh, we can do the deer but not the sheep," it should be the other way around. It should.
Well, that makes sense, because I lost you a little bit, but basically, because obviously the difference, and people say, "Well, we process wallaby," but the difference is wallaby don't travel mass kilometres as a deer will to get a good feed, and we don't know what wild deer are actually eating in the bush, and they could be eating contaminated crops. Now, obviously, that's the risk that all hunters take, because they're taking they're inspecting their own deer. But when you're talking about then providing that to restaurants, high quality restaurants, that's too big a risk.
I think it's a risk in whoever you give it to, and I would like to stay away from that because, as I said, you don't know, it's unknown. And eat that, that's fine. Because if you're a hunter and you shoot one and you look at it and say, "Oh, it's not good enough," then you don't eat it.
Yes.
But once it becomes an item that can be sold for money, I think it'll be slightly different.
Yeah, that makes
sense. And I have been approached, and I have refused a number of people. People want to buy deer, and they all want it. And you say, "No, guys, this is not what we do. We are very proud of our product, and we want to stick with it."
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, is there anything else that that you want to talk about? Actually, what I was thinking to finish this up, and look, if you don't mind, if this works all right, I'd actually love to do another catch up with you, but also try and get a member from Game Management Services and a couple others involved, so we can actually have a wider conversation. If you're up for that.
Absolutely. And look, they came to the farm. They all been here. I've had all of them here. I went to that when that big talk was in Hobart. I went there and they all came. They all came to the farm. So 10 out of 10 for that. They are, they're not the baddies. They just have a job to do, and we just got to sort of help them to do it the right way. That's all. Yeah. But I'm happy to have it here on the farm, to be honest.
Yeah. All right. That'll be awesome. Well, so I'm going to ask you probably what's one of your favourite venison recipes to finish up, to let people know. I've always got to ask. I always like to get ideas from other people.
That'll cost you money. I tell you what, we don't eat. I always say we don't eat that much venison because we can't afford it. But I just did today. We just did a good old Hungarian Europe. They call it Hungarian goulash, but a lot of Europeans would argue about it. But we just did a good venison goulash, and I'll tell you what, you can't beat it.
Yeah,
it's a good old home cooking and so on, and that's where we need to go. I still say the best cut on the deer is shanks.
Yeah,
and backstrap is highly overrated, and everybody looks at me like I fell off the buck youth. But yeah, no, we do, and I do actually quite a mean pie as well. But we love our shanks. We slow cook our shanks on a fire. And again, I think you can beat it. I had some soldiers from Israel here the other day, young guys that just finished their 3-year stint, and I'll put that in front of them, and you should have seen them, how they ate it. It was magic. But no, it's a good meat. It doesn't have to be a lot of people who worry about it. I get questions all the time. How do you cook venison? And I said, look, if it's a good venison, then treat it like a young lamb. And that's all. You can just carry on with it.
Yeah, awesome. And you also understand you have accommodation on your farm as well, so people can come and stay overnight and see the beautiful area up in the Anna Valley and around Mole Creek. Is that right?
Correct. We have a B&B, and we got like a big fire pit and so on. And it's amazing how many hunters we get coming and stay there, because the deer move out to the B&B in the evening and so on and so on. So they really are surrounded by the deer. We don't chase them there; they sort of seem to come. And so yeah, especially and for city people, you can imagine for people living in Singapore or Hong Kong and coming here, open fire, deer everywhere. Yeah, it's magic.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome, Michael. Well, look, I know it's very short and sweet sort of talk today, so I just wanted to get an idea of where you were coming from, and what we want to try to do from here is just try and spread the word out and get people to think a little bit wider than just their own selfish interests, and realize then that we need to get the balance right, and we need to be looking after our farmers and encouraging people to buy local and support local. And importing is something we shouldn't be doing, especially now that the businesses are trying to rebuild themselves during these strange times. And look, if there's anything we can do to help, or if people want to contact you, what's the best way for them to contact you for your Springfield deer farm?
I think they just go on a website, punch in Springfield Deer Farm, and it all comes up.
Awesome. All right, Michael.
But as I said, by all means, we got nothing to hide and whatever. Look, there seems to be just a couple of people that are pushing this, and so I'm a bit uncomfortable with the fact that just one or two people can almost stop an entire business agriculture operation for 170 deer farmers. So yeah, I think we need to. And look, I think the guys in the government are not anti it, but as I said before, they do have a heart between the hunters and the farmers and whoever. They have a heart balancing it. So yeah, we need to help them to get it right.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree with that sentiment. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much for your time, Michael. I know it was very short. And I'll see how this comes out, and I'll let you know. And what I'll try to do is, if things sort of settle down a bit, hopefully I can try and organise a few people, and we'll catch up and maybe have a nice beer and have a bit of a wider chat.
Done deal.
Awesome. Thanks for your time.
Okay, Dan. Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you. Talk to you again soon. Thank you.
Cheers, Dan. Bye.